Hello, happy Sunday, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. I am very excited to be here before you all. It's a very exciting day because it is a Sunday show, and Sunday shows are always special because really they're special because they're the only days that I record the podcast. So it's special because it is becoming a show as we speak, right? This is all happening as we speak. So I hope everyone's doing well. I'm Mike, and this podcast is Learn English with Mike, where we look at different phrasal verbs, different expressions in English. Everything is related and referenced to a Instagram page that I have that is learn.english.expressions. And also a YouTube channel where I post little English lessons explaining phrases and expressions. And that is Learn English with Mike on YouTube. So anyway, I recommend you also use those resources. They're great, especially they're very complimentary to this podcast because most of the stuff that I will talk about today, I have posted stuff about, and it's always great to use visualization and all of that to complement your learning when you are learning a language. So there you will have actual videos of me talking, and you can see my mouth move and practice reading lips, which is also a very helpful way of improving your language skills. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and look at some different phrases and expressions that I've talked about throughout the week. Typically, I share different songs and expressions that I hear in songs and phrasal verbs that I hear in songs. And then I also make little posts just about different expressions that I might have heard somebody saying throughout the week, or maybe I heard it on a podcast, or just heard when I was talking to some friends. So I post those expressions as well whenever I catch them. And then I also try to share some stuff from like different pop culture. I've been posting stuff from a show that I listen to in the morning that is called Brooke and Jeffrey in the Morning, where they do this segment called Second Date Update, and I post different clips from that where you can hear actual native speakers using very conversational English. And I want to stress the importance of exposing yourself to that kind of English, especially if you're planning on, traveling to the United States at any point, and that's why you're learning English, or you're going to be using it in business, or, on a day-to-day basis, because it's really important to expose yourself to that casual, conversational English, because when you actually are speaking with native speakers, they're going to use that a lot, and that's why I always like to focus on expressions and phrasal verbs, because we use a lot of those. And if you're not ready for that, if you haven't practiced hearing it, and then you go and you actually are in a situation where native speakers are speaking, you're probably going to find that it is a little bit difficult to understand them, and you might be a little bit discouraged. I know that has happened to me when I was learning Spanish. I studied a lot, listened to different movies, watched TV shows, felt pretty confident, but then, and this still happens to me now, I get in situations where I'm traveling in Spanish-speaking countries and I hear people speaking and I have no idea what they're saying. I'm completely lost, and I always get kind of discouraged. And it's going to happen. It's always going to happen because language evolves and it changes all the time. So, it's impossible to be 100% prepared because, even if you're familiar with English and you are very conversational in it, Chances are, if you've taken like a year where you haven't used it very much, or you haven't traveled in a year, and then you go back, there's going to be new words and new slang and stuff, so you always have to kind of catch up. So don't be too discouraged by it, but hopefully the tips and the lessons and stuff that I'm providing help you be prepared a little bit more for conversational English, and help you feel more comfortable, making friends and interacting in English. So we'll go ahead and look at some of the phrases and expressions that I have posted recently. We're going to start with the first one is slim pickings. And this is just a phrase that we use when we don't really have very much variety, when there's not much left to choose from. So for example, if, somebody brings donuts to work, the example I used on Instagram was bringing pizza to work, but now we're going to switch it to use donuts to try and keep it interesting. So, you have donuts at work, and you are busy when the donuts arrive, and, 20 minutes later, you go up to go try and get yourself a donut, and there's only plain donuts left, right? Because all the other coworkers have come and helped themselves to donuts, and that's all that remained were the least popular donuts. And so you might look at those plain donuts and say, geez, kind of slim pickings now. I wish I would have come earlier. So slim pickings is basically like you have very little to pick from, right? You don't have very many options to choose from. So your pickings are slim. And this word slim, it's a synonym of the word slender or skinny or thin. You can use it to talk about somebody who is skinny, right? You can say this person is very slim or slender. So that's what slim means. It means your options are very thin, very thinned out, right? You don't have as many options as you would have hoped for. So that is what slim pickings is. Next one was a post I put on Instagram just the other day. That was a backhanded compliment. So this phrase, a backhanded compliment, is a phrase that, honestly, I don't think I really heard it much 10 years ago. So I think it's a newer phrase, but maybe it's just a newer phrase to me. But basically, I like it just because, once you know what it means, the visualization is a really nice visualization of why it would mean what it means. But basically, a backhanded compliment is when somebody compliments you, but at the same time is also kind of insulting you, right? So it could be somebody saying you did something really nice, but at the same time saying that in general your work usually isn't very nice. So they're very impressed with how you did, but in general they're not ever very impressed with your work. So that could be one way of giving somebody a backhanded compliment. And the idea here is, you have your hand and then you have the back of your hand. So when you hit somebody with the back of your hand, like kind of slapping a person, we use that as a verb to backhand somebody. So if you were to swat somebody with the back of your hand, we would call that backhanding, right? So you're basically kind of backhanding, complimenting somebody. You're giving somebody a backhanded compliment because you're saying something nice, but you're also kind of hitting them at the same time. You're doing something that's a little bit of a shock to their system. So backhanded compliment. Another example of this could be like if somebody is telling you how good you look and saying, previously, the last time they saw you, they didn't think you looked all that great, but, you've really cleaned up your act and you've really, put yourself together and got your stuff together, and now you look really great. They're saying something nice, right? But at the same time, they're kind of criticizing how you looked before. So you could feel a little bit insulted by that. So that is a backhanded compliment. The next phrase is going to be, I'm in your corner. So when someone talks about being in your corner, it means that that person supports you, right? So I feel like I hear this a lot in like office settings or TV shows where they're working in an office setting. And it's basically, saying I support you. So when people are talking about different projects or ideas or visions that maybe they have for the company, somebody might say, oh yeah, I'm in your corner. I'm in your corner. Another phrase that people use that's kind of similar is you're preaching to the choir, right? Because you're preaching to somebody who agrees with you, who's also singing the same song as you are. So you're preaching to the choir. You're preaching to the choir. Had a little trouble getting that one out. But anyway, if that one's a little bit too complicated for you, as you just heard, I had difficulty saying it, preaching to the choir. You can use this other phrase, I'm in your corner. I'm in your corner means I support you. I believe the origins of this phrase is like from boxing, like the sport of boxing, or wrestling, because, you have the corner and the coach is usually in the corner encouraging the athlete to, win. So you have that support from your corner, right? So I think that is the idea there, and that's probably where the expression comes from. Next phrase here is going to be running on empty. So we also say running on fumes. When you're running on empty, it basically means that you're exhausted, right? You're very tired. We use the same expression when we're talking about our car almost being out of gas. We'll say, I'm running on empty right now. You could also say, I'm running on fumes, right? Because you don't have any more liquid gas and it is just the fumes that are keeping you going. So people use this a lot when we are very tired or we've been overworked and we don't have much energy left. I must be running on empty because I'm having trouble talking here. See what I did there? Anyway, so running on empty. And I got this from a song, I think, but there's actually, it was just a random song, but there's also a song where it's called Running on Empty. It's a real famous oldies song where they're like, running on empty, running low, something like that. Running around, something. Anyway, I am a terrible singer, so, singing on a podcast is probably the worst idea. If I had 2 or 3 listeners, I probably am now going to have negative number of listeners from that little singing there. But anyway, you've probably heard that song is my main point. The running on empty, run around. So maybe I'll put a link to it because I'm not doing it justice at all. Anyway, so that's a great expression for you to use when you are very tired. Next expression here is going to be the expression, let it slide. So let it slide is something we say when we want to tell somebody not to worry too much about something. And I feel like I've talked about this one pretty recently, but I heard it in a newer song. They said, let it slide. And so I just pointed it out that is an expression that we use when you don't worry too much about something, or you don't let it bother you. You let it slide, right? You let it just slide on down the road, and don't let it bother you at all. So your teacher might catch you cheating on a test and say, I'm going to let it slide this time, but don't ever let me catch you doing that again. And that is what it means to let something slide. Another phrase that we're going to look at here is to put up a fight. So you probably already know what this means. It means that you're going to fight, right? But because of the wording of this phrase, it's kind of like a phrasal verb in a sense that we're saying you're putting up a fight, right? So when you think of the phrasal verb to put up, one of the meanings is to like create or to establish or to build or construct, right? So in that case, when you're putting up a fight, you are making a fight happen, right? So this actually usually means that you are defending yourself, right? When you put up a fight, you are defending yourself. You're not, we'll say like, I'm not going down easy. I'm going to put up a fight. So this could be maybe you're getting in trouble at work, or they are going to fire you, and you could say, oh, this is not going to happen without me putting up a fight, right? I'm going to defend myself. I'm not just going to let them fire me. I'm going to fight this. I'm going to put up a fight. So it's probably fairly obvious, but I did want to just point out that when we phrase it this way, we're usually talking about defending ourselves, or sometimes we'll talk about people quitting and not even putting up a fight. And that just means they quit without defending themselves. They quit without even really trying, So that is what it means to put up a fight. Next one we are going to look at here is to have butterflies in your stomach. And I'm pretty sure in Spanish, it's a similar phrase, something about mariposas en la panza, para todos los hispanohablantes escuchando ahora. So it's butterflies in your stomach, right? And it just means that you're nervous or you're feeling kind of unsettled in your stomach because of nerves, right? So you have butterflies in your stomach. And that was, I got that from this radio show I listened to where they do this thing called, it's a segment on the show called the Second Date Update. And they do like this whole thing where this person calls somebody they went out on a date with and they try and get a second date. So I got that expression from that, and that's a great way to practice your conversational English comprehension, your listening comprehension of conversational English, because they use a lot of phrases, and sometimes, like in that case, I think he said like, oh, there's definitely butterflies going. He's referring to that expression, butterflies in your stomach. But he just says there's butterflies going, or I had butterflies going. It's like I was nervous, but a lot of times in conversation, we might just reference the expression without saying the full expression, right? And then in that same segment, he used another phrase talking about trying to get the courage to talk to this girl. And he says, I had liquid courage, or I had a little bit of liquid courage. So you probably can guess what liquid courage is. Liquid courage is when you have like a drink to kind of calm your nerves, or you've been drinking, and we call it liquid courage because you have more courage after that, or you're less cautious or scared or intimidated. So we say liquid courage. If you hear people talking about liquid courage, they're usually referring to a drink or having a little bit of a buzz from drinking something. It's a very common way to refer to alcohol or to a drink, right? In terms of course, you want to use it in the context of doing something that maybe you would originally be scared to do, right? You typically wouldn't just say like, I would like a glass of liquid courage. You don't order a drink like that. It's just more of a way to refer to drinking, and in a context where you did something that you might not have done without having a drink. So that's what liquid courage is. Remember to always drink responsibly. And then another phrase, two of them here that I wanted to point out about talking about somebody who you think is attractive. And that was somebody is stunning, right? Somebody who is stunning is somebody who's very good looking. they stun you, right? So when you're stunned, it's like you're frozen. They're so good looking, it freezes you. When law enforcement, when police officers use tasers to zap somebody, there's another term for the tasers. They're called stun guns, right? Because they stun you, they freeze you, right? So we call them stun guns. So that's the word, to stun. And we use that as an adjective to talk about somebody who looks really good. You say this person was stunning. Another phrase sorry, I have to reword that. Another phrase the guy uses is this person's a knockout, right? So that's another way to talk about somebody you find attractive. That person's a knockout, right? Because it's like they knock you out. Another phrase that means that it stops you in your tracks, or it keeps you frozen because of how amazing this person looks. They are a knockout. So that is a way you can talk about beautiful people. And then another phrase that I wanted to point out, which is very common in English, is the phrase "to be fair." And this means exactly what you would imagine it means. It's just a very common way people will introduce an opinion. Usually it's an opinion that maybe is not very popular, but it's a justified opinion. So people will say this a lot. People kind of overuse it, so it won't even make sense sometimes. Like, it's not like you're really giving a justified opinion. You're just kind of giving your opinion. And you'll say, well, to be fair, for example, if I don't even have a good example off the top of my head for this. Like, if two people are arguing and they're arguing about something related to sports, and I know something about sports, I might say, well, to be fair, and then introduce my opinion. Sorry, that's a terrible example. Another way would be like, if I witnessed a car accident and the two people who got in the accident are arguing about what happened, and I say, well, to be fair, this person didn't signal, right? So it's kind of that person's fault. To be fair, I'm just being fair. I'm just pointing out evidence, factual evidence, and I'm just being fair. So we'll use this phrase a lot, to be fair. Last thing I wanted to talk about real quick was this thing that is called a prefixing. So I shared the song Wagon Wheel, which I don't know if you know that song, but it's rock me mama like a wagon wheel, rock me mama any way you feel, something like that. But anyway, it's kind of like an old folksy song, and it's kind of like a bluegrass style, folk music style. But there's a couple times the person's talking about, he says, I'm a heading down south to North Carolina, but he says I'm a heading, and he says I'm a hoping in another part. He's like, I'm a hoping that I can make it there by sundown, something like that. But this is called a prefixing, and I had to research this actually because I never really paid much attention to it before. But it is apparently kind of an Appalachian dialect, so it makes sense in this song Wagon Wheel, because he's talking about leaving the North to go down to North Carolina to be with his love interest. And so this is a way that you might hear people talk sometimes, and it's common in music as well. I think because it has kind of a musical tone to it, adds another syllable. But basically the way it works is with like present progressive verbs, people will add the letter A or the sound A in front of the ing part of the verb. So, for example, in the song, he says, I'm a heading to North Carolina. I'm a heading, or I'm a hoping, right? Or I could say like, I'm recording a podcast. I'm a recording. Or people will say, I'm a working today. I'm a working on this. I'm a working on it. But it's probably not something you will end up using unless you end up living in a region where that's common for people to talk like that. But I think it is something that could be very confusing, especially if you see it written and you're like, why does it say a heading? I'm a heading. What's this a in between? Why is this here? Or why is this in between the verbs? What's going on here? So I wanted to help you out with that a little bit, that especially if you're listening to something that's trying to capture that folksy kind of Southern talk. In this case, I looked from the Yale Grammatical Diversity Project in North America, and they have a really nice article about it. It's called A Prefixing, and it's a style of speaking in the Appalachian region. And it's historic, it dates back to the 1700s from the examples that they're giving there. So, it's something you might encounter, and don't let it confuse you, because that is just a way of speaking and a dialect that you might encounter. So I hope that makes sense. I know it's a little bit hard to explain. I definitely recommend, if you are interested in this, to look up A Prefixing in English, or you can look up the Yale Grammatical Diversity Project in North America, and they have a really nice article about this that really explains it very well. So that's it for today. Last expression I'm going to leave you with is a real fun one. It's fly by the seat of your pants. So this expression means to improvise, right? So you are improvising, you're being spontaneous, you're not making plans, you're flying by the seat of your pants. It's like you are following wherever the seat of your pants takes you. Basically, you're flying by the seat of your pants. That's one way to look at it. It also might, be referencing like you're just kind of making things up, right? You're flying by the seat of your pants. So this is just a common phrase that we use. It's kind of an older one in terms of, it's been around forever, but you still hear people say it quite often. So I'm going to leave you with that, and hopefully you are studying hard and you are learning a lot, and you're not just flying by the seat of your pants in your quest to learn English. Anyway, I hope everyone has a great week, and please send me any questions if you have them. And I hope you enjoyed this little podcast today, and we will see you in the next lesson. Keep studying and keep learning. Have a wonderful rest of your day.